Hi everybody and welcome back to the next Civ episode. So now we're in the mid B tier, or actually in the upper B tier already. Just finished Melee and are now moving on to the Saracens. I think the Saracens are a very interesting Civ because they have a very broad and flexible tech tree. So let's just take a look at them. There we go, Saracens. There they are. And well, first of all, let's take a look at the units that they can make. They have Arbalester, they have Champions but no Pikemen, they have Heavy Cav Archer, Hussar, Heavy Camel Rider, no Cavalier, that's very notable, but they have Siege Ram, Siege Onager, Bombard Cannons, and look at this, complete the full Blacksmith upgrade. And also a very usable unique unit, the Elite Mameluke. Yeah, I think it makes some significant bonus damage to cavalry. And they also have a unique tech, Zealotry, that makes camel units have more hit points. And 50% attack for trebuchets and mangonel line. Okay, that's also pretty crazy because they will have very good siege onagers, access to that. Like their Mameluke siege onager, bombard cannon, heavy camel rider with upgrades like that. Gold intense play is very notorious. Also with bomber towers for very long. No, they don't have bomber towers. But also backed up by towers and castles and all that is very much used on closed maps. But for Arabia, I think this is not something which is as viable. Yeah, let's take a look at their bonuses. Market trade cost only 5%. I would have to do the exact math on how much benefit that is for the market. I know that there are some crazy strategies out there to go up with them to the castle age extremely fast by using the market. I've tried it a couple of times and it doesn't really make sense to me for my own personal playstyle because I have the feeling I'm sacrificing more than I'm gaining with this. For instance, if I'm selling my stone and sending a lot of villagers to gold, trying to up really fast, I usually don't really have a healthy eco behind it. And then it's like, okay, I have a crossbowman timing, kind of, which needs to find huge, tremendous amounts of damage to make it worth it. And yeah, I think I'd rather not use the market to up faster. I think I make a market at some point anyways, and when I'm using it, I'm passively making use of that bonus. That's the way I'm thinking about it. Transport ships and galleys are not so much not so relevant for Arabia, I think. But camel units plus 10 hit points by default is pretty amazing. So I think the camels tank one more hit. So playing camels versus cavalry does really make sense with Saracens. So it's a very good option to counter cavalry civs. And of course the Mameluke is amazing. The zealotry unique tech is amazing. And then there is a very funny team bonus, foot archers plus 2 attacks versus buildings. And that is actually pretty nice if you want to for example, get in with 20-24 crossbows at early castle age. And I like to play this in team games a lot because then it's sometimes the maps are bigger, and if you, for instance, make defensive siege, it will take a while to get forward. If you make offensive siege, you're pretty vulnerable at home. So the siege play, especially with mangonels to accompany archers, is a little more difficult in team games. And I've had great success with groups of 20 to 30 crossbowmen actually taking down town centers because of that bonus. I think that the bonus damage is calculated after the actual damage. So the PS armor of the town center makes it so that my crossbowman would usually just do 1 damage, but with that it makes 3. So it's like 300% of damage output for crossbowmen versus most buildings. So even though it seems like it's not so much, factoring in that, for instance, you have a mass of 30 crossbows, that's per volley like 60 more damage. That is something. And yeah, so I I think good opening strategies for them might be going either straight scouts or straight archers, more or less generic. I think I'm going to stay away from men-at-arms archers for one simple reason, or actually for two simple reasons combined. The first is I don't get any bonuses for the men-at-arms opening, so it is technically a pretty expensive opening which needs to find damage. And when either 22 pop archers or 21 pop scouts used to be meta, men-at-arms had a great window of opportunity where they could find damage. Now that people up with 19 or 20 pop to go either archers or scouts, they can clean the men-at-arms so fast that if I have just generic men-at-arms, it does barely make any sense to go for them. Because I'm very unlikely to find much damage with them. On the other hand, going archers, which then have an easy time to shred through buildings, is an option, and going scouts, transitioning into that camel play, also makes sense. Now let me think a little bit about the game plan for Saracens here. When I'm playing versus an archer civ, let's say Britons or Vietnamese or Ethiopians or anything with an archer bonus, I actually don't want to play crossbowmen myself because my unit is just worse. Then am I really opting for something like light cavalry skirmisher play? Is that good? I really don't know. Then on the other hand, if I'm playing versus a cavalry civ, do I want to go down the road and play scouts into camels? Well, it is an option. I think I could technically play knights with bloodlines and husbandry and +2 and all that versus archer civs, and then add skirmishers. So play knight skirm versus an archer civ and castle age. But that would mean that I will have to make a tech switch eventually away from knights, or gearing towards heavy camel, which is probably not so good of an idea versus archer civs altogether. But then on the other hand, I also have siege ram to play versus archer civs, which is pretty crazy. I think I need to think about this. What do Saracens do versus archer civs? I think I'm trying to play knights, skirmisher, and castle age. And then for imperial age, gearing to siege ram, still knights, no need for cavalier. I mean, at least they get the last armor upgrade. Cavalier would have 120 hit points as opposed to 100, and Cavalier would have still 2 pierce armor, which knights also have. Paladin then has 3 pierce armor. Yeah, so I think versus archer civs I could technically go knights, even in imperial age, and elite skirmishers, and that with full upgrades added, and then spend some gold on siege units, especially versus archer civs. Could be very nice to add in some siege rams. That's going to be annoying, I think. And versus cav civs, yeah, that's actually I could try to move into a scouts war with Saracens, and then transition into camels, because that makes use of my bonuses. I could also play it as an archer civ and only move into camels once my archers are bad. Maybe playing versus archer civs also makes sense to still play archers and then just add in skirmishers and mangonels and try to win the archer war, even though I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage. But at least I have fully upgraded Arbalestis with Thumpering. That kind of stuff could be good. I might even have to see how this works out in practice. At the moment, I'm wondering if I could technically overwhelm an archer player with the timing if I make use of the market still. Okay, this is just a couple of thoughts, and I'm not too convinced yet on how to play Saracens actually. Then I also can consider the fact that I fully upgraded champions with Gambesons, Squires, Arsons, supplies, everything available. All upgrades available. So also the champion line is not bad. It's just that it's also just a more of a post-imp option. I think what I'm going to do here is actually watching a Hera video. I think he has this kind of video out. YouTube.com. Let's check this. How to play Saracens. It's 2 years old, but never mind.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today, value for a generic civ is 30%. So if you want to trade, mid-game when camels start to get out of the play right off the bat, the reason why 10 extra hit points on camel is really strong is because if you survive fights, if it's one-on-one camel, Saracen versus generic, and you win the fight with like 10 HP or a few HP remaining because of this bonus, you can then go back and heal your entire camel back to full HP, and it's like you saved a unit because of this bonus. It worked out, or it was very beneficial.
Okay,
for
monks
me personally,
didn't consider that.
Certain, at different stages of the game with Saracens. And as you can see, their barracks is also pretty stacked. You have champions with supplies and squires. You don't get halberdier, you get just pikemen. But, the champion line could be pretty useful at times. And then if you go to their cavalry, it may seem that you have terrible cavalry because right away you're lacking cavalier. It's the only civ in the game to lack cavalier except for Indians who don't get knights. So that's it's a pretty big hit. However, you have really strong heavy camels to make up for that, and you also get access to fully upgraded hussars. So their stable is not that bad. It's just that they miss out on that one heavy cavalry. So you have to be really careful when playing all in knights and castle with Saracens. You have to end the game, or else if it goes to Imperial Age, you can't really upgrade those. So you have to be careful with that. Their siege is actually quite strong. Supports their siege.
I'm just wondering what the game plan is
pretty
here.
Much every situation. That being said, they aren't necessarily the most powerful in any area except maybe camels, because that's where most of their bonuses are geared. But again, using camels as your main unit and the archer range as getting the crossbows that do more damage to building, and using the market to get a faster uptime to get the crossbows earlier, is going to be your main go-to option. So archer range plus camel line in that feudal to castle age. And then in Imperial Age, you have your whole text tree open. You can go Arbalest Hussar, you can go Heavy Cav Archer Hussar, you can go Camel Skirm, you can go Mamluks, you can go Onagers. There's so many options in the late game that I'm going to leave that completely up to you guys and whatever you want to do.
Yeah, probably Camel Skirm is not even bad.
In the early game, feudal to castle, I recommend opening with some of their archers or some of their scouts, and then finding your way somehow to either crossbowmen in early castle or some sort of camel option as well. So like the camels plus skirm or camel plus crossbow can be really good in castle age. And the last thing I'll mention is that going cav archers with Saracens is totally valid. They don't get any bonuses for cav archers, but they do get fully upgraded cav archers. So it is still a strong unit in late game. If you want to mass that up in castle age with the new cav archer buff, it's actually fine to do so. Let's go ahead and take a look at this game. I'll do the introduction for the players.
He plays versus Lithuanians. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Then you can actually be on a camel game. So, yeah, that's a little bit of a very funny idea to go camel skirm, even versus archer civs. So versus archer civs, kind of opening the counter, opening with skirms, and then yeah, just switching to camels. Oh, it could make sense. And then yeah, when I'm playing versus knight civs, it could also make sense to play to open camels, so to open the counter unit for his main unit, and then probably even switching away from the gold unit onto Arbalest Hussar for late game, and always adding in camels if need be. Tricky. Seems a little tricky to me, but now I think it kind of makes sense. So my game plan, once again, let's recap. When I'm playing versus an archer civ, I might lean towards skirmisher play, And that's why I should open scouts into skirms, then leading myself to a stable play. But instead of going two stable knights, I'd rather go elite skirm, one range elite skirm first, counter the archer play, and then add camels behind. That makes it really difficult to deal with this composition then for the archer player. And yeah, then boom behind, get to a strong late game. The late game should be fine, and my composition could look like something heavy camel elite skirmisher, or it could look like something Arbalester Hussar. And when I'm playing versus a Cav Civ, I should also try to go for the scout wall. I should add in some spearmen to survive the scout wall. I could switch to archers even in late feudal, so adding a range makes sense. It doesn't make sense to go to skirmishes then because my enemy is not on archers, but I could add archers myself, and that opens up the window for a crossbow switch, B, a cav archer switch, or C, still staying on the stable, making camels, and then yeah, see how that goes. If I'm countered by pikes, then I can switch to the archer line. So playing stable into archery range versus cav civs makes sense. And yeah, then I kind of have to decide which is my main unit in Castle Age, dependent on my opponent's strategy, because I don't have that power unit. Like Heavy Camel Rider as a power unit, for instance, doesn't really make sense versus Britain Arbalesters. It's this is something that I won't opt for. And on the other hand, my generic Arbalesters are probably not the power unit I want to go for against an Archer Civ either. And I also don't want to be playing Heavy Camel Rider into help. So yeah, I do have to make that dependent on my opponent, which makes the Civ a little bit difficult to play. I do have the market bonus though to help me out to balance against whatever is happening to me. And yeah, if all fails for the late game, I can still go for Gambits and Champions. So that's my plan here. Let's jump on the ladder and try it out. I think this is going to be complicated.